Students, counselors, families, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it is you are joining us. Thank you so much for joining StriveScan's virtual college exploration program. This program is in partnership with the colleges that change lives. So a few housekeeping items before we begin. First and foremost, you're encouraged to ask questions throughout the session via that Q&A button that you see on your screen. When you submit a question, it'll get sent to all of our panelists and they will work to answer the question during the session and at the conclusion of the session as well. As a reminder, your camera and your microphone are turned off so the panelists cannot see or hear you, but if you do have questions, type them into that Q&A. This is one of 50 individual information sessions and panel presentations that we are running through the colleges that change lives. These run through Tuesday evening. So we encourage you to check out the full scope of the program at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL, the same space you went to register for this individual event. You received a barcode when you signed up for this program. You do not need that barcode for this virtual program. And I am recording this session and all of the CTCL sessions, and they'll be made available on our website very soon at strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to our panelists.
Thank you, Zach. I'm just going to pull our presentation up really quickly. All right. Thank you all for joining us. I know that it's a Saturday afternoon, so we're very excited that you took time out to spend it with us this afternoon. My name's Rachel West. I'm an Associate Director of Admission at Agnes Scott College. I work primarily with students from Tennessee, Kentucky, and Northern Georgia, but when working with colleges that change lives, we work with all students. And I have two people joining me today. So Ash, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Ash Haywood. I am an admission counselor here at Agnes Scott. I work with students primarily from the West Coast, as well as the Mid-Atlantic states, a bit of Georgia as well, but as Rachel said, I get to work with everyone, which I love. And I'll hand it off to Taliesin.
Hi, everyone. I am Taliesin. I am a rising junior at Agnes Scott, studying psychology with a minor in women's, gender, and sexuality studies.
Excellent. So we all have a pretty short amount of time together, just about 45 minutes. So we're going to give you what we consider sort of the quick highlights version of information about Agnes Scott. We're going to focus specifically on some things that make us a little bit different from other colleges that change lives institutions or other institutions that you might be looking at. And then at the end, we'll give you some further opportunities to touch base if you want to dig more in depth into a major or something like that. We're totally happy to do that. And as Zach said at the beginning, if you have questions throughout, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A box. We'll be keeping an eye on it and try to answer questions as we go through. And we'll also leave some time at the end to make sure that any questions that you have are answered. So thank you again. We're going to go ahead and jump into talking about Agnes Scott College. And I'm going to get started by talking about Agnes Scott's mission statement. It's actually one of my favorite things to talk about, one of my favorite things about Agnes Scott. It's what drew me to the college. And the mission of Agnes Scott is to educate women to think deeply, live honorably, and engage the intellectual and social challenges of their times. The reason why this mission statement is so important to the college and also to me personally is I think it's really illustrative of Agnes Scott's past and our present. So talking about the past, Agnes Scott is a women-centered institution. And we have, for our entire founding, been really focused on providing education to underrepresented student groups. So from our founding as a women's seminary in a time when there were not many women's college options in the South, to now, we're going to talk a little bit about what our student body looks like now. We're really focused on making sure that students have a chance to seek higher education and are prepared for whatever their future might bring. The other thing I love about the mission statement is it's not just something that we wrote and put up on the wall. It's something that is infused in everything that Agnes Scott does. So any program that started, any new major has to answer the question of how it fits this mission statement. And I think you'll see that as we go through the presentation, how that has sort of been in effect as we come up with programs for Agnes Scott. So just to start off, let's talk a little bit about our students, one of our most important things to talk about. I wish you were able to be on our campus so you could actually see some of our students. So we put some of their faces up on the screen just so you can sort of see who those classmates might be if you were at Agnes Scott, some of my favorite people up here on the screen. We have a pretty small student body, so we have about 1,000 undergraduate students. We also have a small graduate student population and a small post-bac pre-med population. But a small group of students, small class sizes, very intentional in being able to get to know other students and also professors and staff members. You can see sort of from the numbers up on screen, our students are really diverse in all possible ways. One of those ways is geographically. So right now our student body represents 43 states and 28 countries. I would love to get it up to 50 states. So if you happen to know a student from the Dakotas, please feel free to send them in mine and Ash's direction. But our students are sort of coming from all of these different places, as well as different backgrounds racially and ethnically. About 62% of our first year class identifies as students of color, and that is across the board of all of our students, as well as just over 40% of our students identifying as first generation students. What I think is really important about this is our students are diverse, geographically, politically, racially, religiously, sort of across the board. And so when you're in class, you're going to be hearing from perspectives and from backgrounds of students that are identical to you and also very different to you. And I think that's really important part of a liberal arts college education. So speaking of that education, one of the things that's really different about Agnes Scott from other colleges that change live schools is we are the only women's-centered college in the CTCL group. And that is a unique experience. It's one of my favorite things about Agnes Scott, but you don't want to hear about it from me. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Taliesin to talk about why she chose a women's-centered environment and what it's like to be in the classroom at Agnes Scott.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Rachel. So I think the answer to this question is different for every Scottie, but I'm very happy to share my story with you. So I was able to visit Agnes Scott during my senior year of high school, and during that visit, I was able to take a mock class. And so that mock class really helped me to experience the difference between an Agnes Scott classroom and a traditional co-ed space that I had been in. So I really felt like students at Agnes Scott were really encouraged to speak up and share their opinions and really take charge of their education, which I felt like that was a space that I could really thrive in. And now moving on to the Agnes Scott classroom. So this is another way that helps Scotties really take charge of their education. So as you can see on screen, the student to faculty ratio is quite small. And so that really means that Scotties will get individualized attention from their professors. And for me, that means that I feel more comfortable speaking up in the classroom, whether that is to share my opinion on the coursework or during a classroom presentation. And also because of our diverse student body, there's a lot of diversity of thought on campus. And so that makes the Agnes Scott discussion-based classes that much more rich. I also feel really comfortable with my professors because of the small student to faculty ratio. So for me, I feel really comfortable going to office hours and showing a professor maybe an assignment and asking how I'm doing on it, or even just talking about how I'm doing in the class in general.
All right. So Rachel and Taliesin spoke of so many of the unique pieces of Agnes Scott, and certainly some of the pieces that drew me to Agnes Scott, especially being a women's college and a woman-centered environment, and being a diverse environment. The other piece on a curricular level that really excited me when I learned about Agnes Scott was SUMMIT. And if you go on our website, you'll probably see the word SUMMIT all around. And for some students, it can be a little bit confusing, right? But what SUMMIT really does is bring the liberal arts education to the 21st century and incorporates global learning and leadership development. So this is integrated, the global learning and leadership development, into your academic interest, and it expands your academic breadth, right? As a liberal arts environment, we want you to come out being a well-rounded student in many regards. So regardless of what your academic major or minor will be, and one thing that we'll talk about a little bit later on is that our students are really excited about multiple subjects and oftentimes will double major and find intersections that are not common. Summit allows you to do that work of studying whatever major it is and being able to really incorporate that into current society and into the global environment. Now that sounds kind of all big in theory, but one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later on is the actual courses that students take. So especially in your first year at Agnes Scott, we want you to have a foundation. Everyone has the same foundation. So through Summit, our students are taking Leadership Development, or what we call LDR 101, and Global Learning 102. These are some of the prerequisite classes that you'll take alongside of your traditional liberal arts prerequisite classes, right? Alongside with maybe your English comp or your STEM courses or your physical education courses. In addition to having that foundation, we know that you can't just have that classroom experience. You need some of that peer support and advising support. And so every student gets a Summit advisor and peer advisor who helps you, especially throughout that first year transition to Agnes Scott, but throughout your 4 years at the college. So talking a little bit more so about these courses. When I first looked at the curriculum and saw the list of LDR 101 classes, I wish I could have gone to college all over again. What I love of these topics, and you can see them presented here, is that they cover so many different aspects of culture and society and touch on many different academic fields as well. Faculty are using their expertise in their field to think about current issues and historical issues that still plague society today, right? So we may be thinking about race, gender, and social change, looking specifically at women's leadership in the US. We may be thinking about music and gender and how they incorporate in one another. Students are also thinking about sacred custodians, right? And conservation in Africa, or role models looking at the Roman explorer tradition, right? So these topics are truly broad ranging, right? We can discover and explore quite a bit. In many ways, the LDR 101 course is designed so that students have their first year seminar, right? To get some of those key foundations to enter into a successful college experience, but once again, engaging in those specific social pieces. I want to bring in Taliesin here because she has a great perspective on her experiences taking LDR 101.
Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute. But my LDR 101 was social and environmental.
Okay, I can't tell if that's on my end, but I think maybe we lost a little bit of connection with Taliesin. So we'll just move forward, and I know Taliesin will, when she gets back connected, to tell a little bit more of her experiences, right? So this LDR 101 class happens in your fall semester, and then students go on to take their second Summit course in their spring semester. So we call this course our Global 102 course, or otherwise known as Journeys. And this is really where the global learning and understanding ourselves as global citizens plays a huge role. These are the subjects and classes that students have been taking the past year. And as you can tell from the different locations, is that we cover most parts of the earth, right? Certainly within our own continent, students are oftentimes looking here in the US, places like New York City, the global city. And then they are also moving a little bit further south, right? So students have gone to Belize to think about marine ecosystems in Belize, going to Mexico, talking about wall art and literature, going to Puerto Rico, thinking about astronomy and discovery. And then we've crossed seas and done really what study abroad is all about, and gone to places like Europe, right? As well as Africa. And so you can see some of the subjects. Students have gone to Benin, studying religion and globalization, or Ghana, studying race and place, past and present. They've gone to Spain, studying Islamic art and architecture. And I think as I start to list off all of these courses, once again, this is the exciting piece of the liberal arts curriculum that looks at the world as it is and all the diversity that brings. So in addition to taking this course throughout your spring semesters, students traditionally have also gone on a 5 to 7 day global journeys experience. This is one of the key pieces of a first year experiences where a first year gets to go on a study abroad opportunity that's covered by the college, right? So this is covering the cost of tuition. And it oftentimes serves as just kind of the appetizer for further study abroad opportunities. If we get Taliesin back, hopefully I can get her to talk a little bit more about her journey's experience.
Well, while Taliesin is coming back in, it seems like she lost connection there. The joys of being online, as I'm sure you're all too aware at this point. I'll actually talk a little bit about my journey's experience. I helped co-lead a journeys class last year, I guess 2 years ago now, to Martinique in the post-colonial Martinique class. What is really interesting about this Global 102 Journeys class is you're spending, a whole semester with a group of students, maybe, 16 students or so, talking about issues of imperialism, colonialism, how those continue to affect the world today. It's a very interesting case study for Martinique in specific because Martinique is still technically a department of France, so it is still technically a colony. And also talking about things related to travel. So what does it mean to be an ethical traveler? How do you travel in a way that is culturally aware? And then you have the chance with that group of people that you've gotten to know very well over a semester to take this trip. And what's interesting is because it's all first year students, there's a variety of experiences. So on my trip, there was an international student. So she was already studying internationally. And there was also a student who had never been on a plane before. So it's a variety of travel experiences. I do want to say, because I'm very cognizant, as you are equally cognizant, that study abroad and trips like this look a little bit different right now, like most things. And so last year, our students, unfortunately, since these trips generally happen in March, we had to postpone their trips. We are committed to making sure all of our students have this intercultural travel experience. It may look different for a while. It may be more of a global United States, which is something we have been doing. So you can see New York City up there as the global city as a trip. The Navajo Nation has been one in the past, one of my personal favorites. But it is something that we're going to continue to do moving forward. It just might look different depending on where we are sort of internationally. And then if you're interested in doing study abroad, and maybe it doesn't happen for you the first year, or even if it does, a lot of our students, over half, will choose to study abroad again when they're upper class students. We offer semester and year-long programs, so that is definitely an option for you. And because you'll have had this course, you will be even more prepared to do that sort of experience.
Yeah, so now that we've kind of talked about the foundational courses that students take through Summit in their first year, of course, students then dive a little bit deeper into your interest in your academic pursuits. And so our students typically declare their major sophomore year towards the end of their sophomore year. At Agnes Scott, we have 32 majors and 31 minors, as well as 3 dual degree programs, which allow you to take advantage of Agnes Scott and the liberal arts department for 3 years, and then 2 years at either Emory University or Georgia Tech for our computer science, engineering, and nursing programs. During this moment, when students are declaring their majors, they also gain additional advisor through their faculty advisor. If you remember earlier, I mentioned a Summit advisor, right? So this person, as I mentioned, will work with you all 4 years. Then you have an additional faculty mentor who can support you in your specific academic pursuits. As I also mentioned earlier, many of our students are thinking cross disciplines, right? Very interdisciplinary. And so oftentimes our students will double major or have a major and minor, sometimes in the social sciences or in the sciences themselves or in the arts, but also oftentimes in fields that are completely separate and different programs as well.
Hey, Ash, we've gotten a question. It seems like your audio is going in and out. Do you maybe want to readjust, and I'll talk through this a little bit while you readjust audio?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you to the person who dropped that into the Q&A. So Ash was talking about those major programs and also the faculty mentor that's going to support you. The great thing about the faculty mentor is because they're really just focused on your interest within that major or minor program, they're really going to focus in on those more specific things. So things like, what do you want to do with this major for your career? What sort of research interest do you have? What sort of internships do you want to do? That is really important so that you are able to sort of take part in that. And if you have more than one, if you're going to be one of those students who double majors or does any of those sorts of things that Ash was mentioning, you will have more than one mentor so that they can really just focus in on that specific academic subject. So it's a really great opportunity if you're one of those people, like many who are interested in the liberal arts, who has more than one passion. I was interested personally when I was in college in English and international studies as my major and physics as my minor. I know those don't sound like they go together, but for me they did. So if you're one of those people, it lets you do explore all of those passions and opportunities. So Ash, is your audio maybe fixed?
I certainly hope so. Please let me know again if I start to
Sounds
cut
like
out.
it.
Yes, okay, awesome. So another fantastic piece of Summit is the sophomore class Atlanta Leadership Experience, otherwise known as SCALE. And so what this does is serves as a continuation of the hands-on learning that our students get to have in their spring semesters, utilizing Atlanta as a great professional development city. So through SCALE, students observe and practice leadership skills in the context of an Atlanta organization. And so this is a hands-on career extern experience. And as you can see with the logos on the right-hand side, there's numerous different types of organizations and companies, right? There are certainly nonprofits, such as places like Girls Going Global. There's places that I think people are a lot more familiar with, especially in a tourist environment, such as Zoo Atlanta. And then we have more so of the kind of corporate end of things, right? So Black & Decker, the Lola, or even thinking about the Atlanta Dream, which is our women's basketball team here in Atlanta. So this is a week-long experience and it actually happens. Am I still available, Rachel?
A little bit on and off, but I think we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you all for bearing with me as we get our technical difficulties together. So this is a week-long experience that happens in conjunction and actually at the same time as our first-year students are doing their Global Journeys experience, right? So this is an opportunity where actually our entire campus is taking a break from their regularly scheduled classes to pursue more of that hands-on learning. And now that we have, hopefully, Taliesin back, we will get her experiences as well. But especially as students are thinking about career development. And we'll talk a little bit more about our location and really taking advantage of our location, both for the academic and career professional side of things, but also, of course, for social life. Taliesin recently participated in SCALE herself as a sophomore this past spring. So Taliesin, welcome back. Hopefully we are all connected. Would you mind talking a little bit of your experiences during SCALE last year?
Yeah, of course. So I went to the Atlanta Birth Center, which was a great experience for me. So most of my group's time at the Atlanta Birth Center was spent shadowing different positions at the organization. But for me, the most memorable part was being able to interview a perinatal therapist because that is my intended career path. So SCALE for me was really instrumental in being able to solidify my professional development goals.
Excellent. And that continues on in many ways, right? So SCALE is a week-long experience. It's really focused on those leadership aspects in addition to meeting leaders and being involved in a project at the organizations like what Taliesin was talking about. But our students really are attracted to opportunities like that. So about 70% of our students will complete at least one internship, and about half will complete more than one. And that doesn't count the scale externship experience. These are semester, year-long, summer-long programs. And also important to me, over half of those positions were paid internships. That's very important to me. I personally think you should be paid for when you do an internship. I know it's not always possible, but we try to make sure that our students have that option as much as possible. It is one of the great opportunities of being in Atlanta as a large city, is that these internship opportunities are so close by. So our students are interning at places like the Georgia Aquarium, like Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, the Grady Hospital System, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As you can imagine, an interesting place to be an intern right now. I think they have several of our students doing virtual internships. I would love to talk to them a little bit more about what they're doing. And then if you want to do an internship outside of Atlanta, because obviously there are opportunities you may not want to miss, we also offer grants that can help offset sort of the cost of living in different cities. And that's how our students were able to do things like intern at Facebook or the Smithsonian or NASA. So it means that we work with students to make sure that if you get an internship, you are able to make that internship happen. If you're not doing an internship, or maybe even if you are probably completing mentored research. So just over half of our students complete some form of mentored research or project, and that is across the disciplines. I think sometimes we get stuck thinking of research as just something that happens in the STEM fields, but we actually have a day in April. It's one of my favorite days every year, our spring annual research conference, where we shut down classes for the day and all of our students that have been doing research present on what they've been doing. And one of the reasons I love it is I can go to presentations back to back, and I can see a student present on a topic in astrophysics that I really don't understand but find really interesting, and then move to a research presentation on a really in-depth piece of music history, which I think just shows sort of the opportunities across the board if you're interested in having that research experience. So we've talked a little bit about sort of the location and why it's so important and that we're in Atlanta. We're actually in what's called Decatur. It's about right outside of the city of Atlanta. If you're familiar with Atlanta, we're what's known as inside the perimeter. So when people talk about Atlanta, you know, it's sort of a widespread. The Decatur area is sort of known as the arts and foodie area of the city. We're known for festivals, we're known for independent restaurants, sort of the foodie area, my personal favorite, boutiques, bookstores, things like that. We're about a 5-minute walk from downtown, and everything is pretty walkable, which is really nice. Maybe not at this precise moment, but again, it will be in the future, I continue to believe. And it's really great to have sort of that within walking distance, sort of that small town community feel, but also have all of Atlanta at your fingertips through easily accessible public transportation. And Taliesin is actually not from the Atlanta area, so I wanted to get her perspective on why is it important? What have you been using the city of Atlanta for?
Yeah, I really like Decatur and Atlanta, just primarily to explore for me. I really like going into downtown Decatur with my friends during the weekend and maybe getting some brunch at a local restaurant and then going to a local shop. I think the shops in Decatur are really cool as well because they also showcase a lot of local artists, which I think is really cool. And Atlanta is home to a lot of different parks, which I think are really awesome to explore.
Yeah, and one of my personal favorite things about Atlanta is even though it's a big city, it's also sort of a big college town. So there are 20 different colleges and universities in the Atlanta area, and we're all sort of connected by the fact that there's 260,000 college students in the city. So you get to know students at Agnes Scott, but you're able to also get to know students on other campuses, either socially, or we actually have a program where you can cross-register for classes. So if there's a class that we don't offer that you really want to take at Georgia Tech, Georgia State University, Emory University, all of these campuses that are close by, you can actually take that class. You don't have to pay anything extra for it. So it's just an opportunity to sort of take advantage of the city. The other thing I want to plug really quickly, one of my personal favorite things, and I know it's one of Ash's favorite things as well, is Karis Books and More. Karis is actually an independent bookstore. It's the oldest feminist bookstore in the South. It's very cool. And they actually have a partnership for Karis Agnes, which is, so they have our personal bookstore within them. And so if you're interested in some Scottie swag, or if you really just want to check out a cool independent bookstore, they have great recommended book list. We put that website up on there so that you can check that out if you would like.
Awesome. So we've thrown a lot of the benefits of being a Scottie, and so hopefully you are excited about applying. So we have 4 different deadlines throughout the year. You can apply to Agnes Scott through the Common App.
Ash, I hate to interrupt you, but unfortunately, I think we're going to lose you on audio again. I'll go through this slide and hopefully your audio will come back on. Apologies to everyone. It's one of those days. Technology is just not working in our favor. So Ash was talking about the deadlines for students to apply. We have multiple deadlines: early decision, early action, regular decision. I always tell students, if you're only going to remember one deadline, the one that I want you to walk away from this presentation remembering is January 15th, our early action 2 deadline. The reason why I highlight that one is as long as you apply to any of the deadlines prior and up to January 15th, then you are considered for all of our academic merit scholarships by applying to the college. Now, what does applying to the college look like? So we use the Common Application exclusively. We require all that's on the Common Application. So the essay, we have a supplement, all of those sorts of things. We do not have an application fee for domestic students, so you won't have to worry about that. We require transcripts. We require 2 letters of recommendation, 1 from a teacher and 1 from a counselor. If you want to send us more than 2, you are welcome to do so. We also are the one thing that's very different about our process is we are test optional. More schools are going test optional this year because it is difficult to take tests right now. Our test optional works in this way. On the application, you get to choose whether you want to send in test scores, whether you want to do an evaluative interview, which is a roughly 35-minute interview with your admission counselor. We're relatively non-threatening. I hope we've come across as that during this presentation. Or you can do a graded writing sample. So it's a paper written probably in your junior or senior year with a literal teacher red pen of comments and grades on it. So you choose which of those 3 is the best option for you. Which one is stronger? If you're a strong interviewer, you want to go with evaluative interview. If you make strong grades in English, maybe you're going to go with that graded writing sample. Oh, and it looks like someone actually asked about this, which is great. So in terms of the financial piece, because that was also asked about, if you do not send in test scores, everything is seen equally, no matter which test option you choose. So for merit scholarships for financial aid, you never have to send in your test scores if you choose to do evaluative interview or graded writing sample. And our students who don't send in test scores receive our highest scholarships and have received equal financial aid packages. So there's equal consideration across the board. I should also say there is equal consideration across our deadlines. So there is not a better chance of getting a higher scholarship or more likely to be admitted if you apply November 15th than January 15th. It is equal across the board. Yeah. So we're going to move in to talk a little bit about scholarships. So our scholarships range. Last year, we're still figuring out a little bit what they're going to look like this year. Our academic merit scholarships that students receive upon admission if they are admitted and and apply by the January 15th deadline, last year ranged from about $18,000 to $25,000 a year. We read applications holistically, which means we consider students based on their entire application for those scholarships. The one scholarship that has different requirements is our Elizabeth Quiche Trailblazer Scholarship. So this scholarship, if you apply and are admitted to the college and you have a 3.75 GPA, a 1250 on the SAT, or a 26 or above on the ACT, so it's or, you just have to have one of those 3 things, and you're admitted, then you know you will at least receive the Trailblazer Scholarship, which is a $25,000 academic merit scholarship, which is renewable for up to 4 years while you're at Agnes Scott. So it's sort of a nice thing to have in your back pocket. However, if you don't have those numbers, that's okay. We are aware that things are different. We read things holistically, as I said. So you could still receive a $25,000 merit scholarship and not have those numbers. It's just going to be based on your whole application instead of just on one of those numbers. So I think that we have thrown a lot of information at you. We have about 10 minutes to talk about any questions that you have. Have any questions been thrown into the chat?
Yes, so there was one question, and I did answer it directly, but it's helpful to talk about it just in case we have more Georgia students in this chat or in this webinar now. The question was, can students qualify for Hope Scholarship, and will they also get Hope Scholarship on top of Merit Scholarship? So since I've given the question and since my audio is somewhat going out, Rachel, feel free to answer the question furthermore.
Yeah, so the Hope Scholarship, for those of you who aren't from Georgia, is our Georgia State program for students that go to high school in Georgia and then remain in Georgia for college. Other states have similar programs, Tennessee Hope, Florida Bright Futures, those sorts of things. And if you have received the Georgia program, you can actually stack that on top of any academic merit scholarship you receive and other financial aid you receive. That is also true for outside scholarships. So if you receive an outside scholarship while you're at Agnes Scott, so you receive a scholarship from your high school or from a community organization, we're going to add that on top of whatever academic merit scholarship you receive. For us, we're not going to reduce your scholarship or your financial aid in any way, which I think is important. You earned that scholarship. We're excited for you. So. And we also have a question about the percentage of Pell Grant students who attend Agnes Scott and support that is offered. That is a great question. And Ash, please feel free to jump in. We'll hope that your audio is fixed. Our percentage of Pell students is actually quite high. So generally, depending on the year, we're about 45 to 50% of our incoming first year class are Pell eligible. We also recently were named #2 in social mobility in the country, a ranking that we received because we have a high percentage of Pell eligible students who then graduate, have high graduation rates and move forward into, higher level economic status. In some sort of way, socioeconomic status. That's really important to us. We want to make sure that we attract students from all backgrounds and then prepare those students for the next steps, as we said several times. In terms of specific programs, because our first generation population is so large, so roughly 40% depending on the year, we don't have specific programs for first generation students. We do have affinity groups for first generation underrepresented students. So we have a club, student organization on campus for first generation students. We also have ethnic and racial and religious affinity groups on campus, which I think is important to give students that support. But mostly our support is in that advising system. So with our Summit advisor that Ash talked about earlier, every student has a Summit advisor. They start talking to students over Zoom, Skype, whatever it is, the summer before they get on campus, and they stay with them until they graduate. So they get to know you really well. You're not going to fall through the cracks because all they're doing is advising, so they remember you. The number of students who have talked about how their advisor recommended them for a fellowship or internship because they knew what they wanted to do was really important. You also have peer support in that peer advisor for your first year, and then the faculty mentors. So because there's so many advisors, people really involved in your success, we are able to help students make the transition to college and then to graduation very well. So Ash, did I leave anything out?
Nope, that's exactly right. And just because I wanted to plug the organization in terms of first generation college students. So as Rachel mentioned, there is one organization that we call Pathmakers. And as a fellow first generation college student, it helps to provide mentorship and create kind of like a peer mentorship as well for faculty and staff who are first generation, as well as with students. So faculty and staff who are first generation oftentimes work with those students for more so kind of moral support, right? And that support throughout the college experience, as well as just having that network. There's also social programming throughout the year that they put on for those students.
Yeah, I will also say we actually have a surprisingly, I would think, large number of faculty and staff that are first generation as well. I don't know the exact number, but we have a number of faculty and staff that are part of Pathmakers. So let's see, we had a question about grad school placement, which is a great question. So we have an average, our 10-year average for grad school placement is about 97%. So students are going to graduate school programs sort of across the country and also internationally. We had about 2 or 3 students this year who went to the UK and Scotland for graduate school programs. And that does include medical school and law school. So our placement levels are very high. The last senior class, or the class of 2018, which are the numbers that we have most recently, they actually had a 100% placement rate. They were overachievers. But our students are really prepared for that graduate school placement. Let's see, we have a question about STEM opportunities, which is great. Unfortunately, you got the program where I don't think any of us are STEM majors. I was very briefly with my flirtation with physics. But if you are interested in the STEM programs, we have a pretty high number of students in STEM. So our most popular majors typically are psychology, public health, biology, pre-med as a academic program outside of the major. So students are really involved in those programs. We have STEM majors across the board. So everything from astrophysics to the biology, and our students have high placement into graduate school programs in those fields, as well as high opportunities for research. So research can start in the very first year. We actually have a program called Goizueta STEM Scholars, where we have about 40 students on campus every summer who are fully funded to do a STEM research project that they would like to do after their first year. So they're really able to get started in things like research very early. We also have a science center for women, which is to help students really be prepared for those fields where maybe women are underrepresented. So Ash, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it all. And did we also just talk about our first year residence hall, GEMS? You may have mentioned it and I may have not.
Did not.
So particularly for students, as they're coming into their first year, there's the option of being a part of a housing cohort, which we call GEMS, Generating Excellence Through Math and Science. And so it allows for an additional kind of support network outside of the classroom, and ability to work with your peers who are studying STEM fields as well.
Yeah, excellent. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Please feel free. We have just about 3 minutes left. So if you have any questions for us or any questions for Taliesin as a student, I think it's great to get students. While we're waiting for those to come in, I want to talk about a couple of ways that you can get to know Agnes Scott beyond this. We would love to have you join us for one of our visit opportunities. We are offering sort of live campus visits throughout the week. Those are sort of info session presentations where you'll also get to hear from a student, a little bit of a repeat to this, so you would get some more information and also a chance to be more personal. Those are meetings so we can talk a little bit more. You may also want to have a personal one-on-one meeting. We have informational interviews that you can sign up for with all of our admission counselors, as well as with some current students. So if you want to hear more from Taliesin, you can sign up to have a conversation with her, which is great. And then we are offering a series called Workshop Wednesdays, where on Wednesdays throughout the fall, we're offering workshops on different topics of admission, both generally and for Agnes Scott. So for the past few weeks, we've been offering things on test optional, on how to write an essay. If you missed those, we'll also have videos up on YouTube soon so you can watch them. So lots of different opportunities. So we have a couple more questions I'm going to sneak in really quickly in the last 2 minutes. And one person asked about how we're doing the COVID pandemic this fall. Excellent question, very important. We are going for a virtual fall semester. It's not what we wanted to do, but given the current health situation, and also if you're aware of Atlanta, we are a little bit of a COVID-19 hotspot at this exact moment. So we're having a virtual fall semester. We actually just recently, the president of Agnes Scott College was diagnosed with COVID-19 and just recently returned home from the hospital. So we are very personally cognizant of sort of the dangers of having a group of students on campus. We are really making sure, we have spent all summer making sure our professors are able to teach classes in a more intentional way, so that students are able to continue to have that classroom environment that they have on campus virtually. And I've sat in on some of the classes that they've done as tests just to see how things are going. And I want to sit in on all of the classes now, if only I could. And then we also have our Office of Student Affairs working on ways to help people be more connected, since student organizations are going to look different. I know many of you are going through this with high school as well. And so we're there with you, you know, empathizing, hoping things go well for you too. We have a question about residence life. The majority of our students live on campus for all 4 years. We actually have an off-campus apartment complex the majority of our seniors live in. That is still campus housing, but it is a little bit less expensive than living in the Atlanta area. And then one student asked a great question really quickly about anxiety in a room on campus. We have several quiet spaces on campus if you're like me and just need a little bit of time to meditate. And I'll actually get in touch with you via email, since we don't have a lot of time to chat, and give you more information on that. So we're having to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for joining us, for sticking with us through a couple of technical difficulties. And if you have questions, we're going to send a follow-up email to make sure that you have all of our contact information so that we can answer those remaining questions. So thank you all so much.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for spending the time with us, and counselors and students, thank you as well for joining us. As you close this window, a very quick 4-question survey will appear. We do ask for your feedback on today's session. We encourage you to sign up for the other Colleges That Change Live sessions that are occurring throughout the rest of the few days. I believe, Ash, are you on a panel that's happening later this week? Do you want to remind everyone what panel that is?
Yes, so actually later on Wednesday will actually be a counselor panel specifically for those college counselors.
Awesome.
I think Ash is also on one on Monday, is going to be handling the Q&A, where the vice president of Hendrix College and one of our senior assistant directors, Jade Domain, is going to be talking about how to work with college admissions and college admission counselors virtually as well. So we would love, I think it's on Monday afternoon. We'd love to have you join that one.
Excellent. Sounds good. Thank you for that little plug. So make sure you visit strivescan.com/virtual/CTCL to sign up for those additional sessions. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.